and mapping process today.
Yep.
So,
well, really, I guess it's probably more an introduction to IQ, because we can't go to the full extent of mapping and stuff like that, really. We probably should do a few videos in a series, because even though the engagement board looks very simple, and even though, you know, Brian and I wrote a book on how it actually works in an organization, probably for you and I, this next 15 minutes will be pretty much just about the foundations of what's behind it, more so than jumping into mapping or doing something. Maybe even you and I can do a demo one, but I think for today, maybe just an overview is maybe what we're going to do. Would that be right?
Yeah. Let's have a look at the foundations rather than get into.
Yeah. Okay. So perhaps if I flip through and I'll share the screen, we'll just have a look at this one. Okay, so we can talk through some of this stuff. So I don't know, where do you want to start, Matt?
Well,
I mean, you've been doing this for what? You've been doing this for 10 years with me.
Yeah.
What would be, before we go to the foundations, what would be your comment? Because I actually just think this is worth saying, because when you came to study the social psychology of risk, you had actually come out of the world of traditional paperwork and auditing, correct?
Yeah, correct. Yeah.
Okay. Now, what was for you the biggest jump when you learned for the first time Risk IQ?
The biggest jump was being able to express what people were thinking and feeling in the general mood in a way that execs could understand. So I always got a problem. They're going, oh, okay, the social psychology of risk. Can you show me exactly what it means? All of a sudden, great, yeah, now I can.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that's good. All right. So I'll just flip to this first slide here, which is about the foundations. So I just want to make one thing about the IQ. I mean, although I give away a great deal of intellectual property for free and downloads and books and videos and all sorts of stuff, the use of the IQ is trademarked and copyrighted to me. And the reason for that is not so much as a economic product. For me, the biggest thing that's important to me is that if you are going to use this method, I don't want it to be abused or distorted. I'd like it to be used well. So just like someone would teach you how to kick a football, you know, if you've learned how to do a drop punt, then do a drop punt and do it properly. Don't do some khaki-handed thing and tell me it's a drop punt. Well, that's fine. You can call it what you like, but it's not a drop punt. So, you know, if you're going to learn how to kick a footy properly, whether you play for Port Adelaide or Adelaide, both of them do a drop punt and both of them know how to do it properly. It has a method.
Yeah.
And in that same way, IQ is a method. And I don't mind sharing it with people, and lots of people are using it across the world, but they've all been trained. They've all been educated in it.
And it allows for the method to maintain its integrity.
Yeah, correct. And so that's my only point. And I'm happy to and give it away to people, and I don't make any intellectual property money out of it at all, unless an organization picks it up and uses it systematically in their risk and safety strategy. So, yeah, so I guess that's the first thing is the whole thing's anchored to education and learning for me. And it's like any method, if you want to learn it, not just kicking a footy, but if you want to learn how to, you know, be a racing car driver, well, there are certain methods you have to go through in order to do it well. And if you don't do it well, you won't end up being good at what you've done. Okay, so let's start with the third dot point, Matt.
The one in red, Risk IQ is a visual, verbal, semiotic tool. So
Yeah, yeah.
huge in as far as risk IQ goes.
Yeah, well, and look, the word IQ simply means intelligent Q. It simply means, are you intelligent to hear, listen, see, and know what are cues in risk in a context? And the focus on visual, verbal, semiotic is so important because the predominance of learning methodology, which is common to risk management and safety in any context, is not visual, verbal, semiotic. It's usually text-based, dot-pointed, table-structured, linear type stuff. And it doesn't allow for visual, relational, or semiotic meaning. So there's no ability within the framework and foundations of traditional text-based or spreadsheet-based kind of risk management to be relational or semiotic, to be visual or verbal. And so the risk IQ is astoundingly different in method than what people are used to. And I guess when we get to the end of this video and we show an example, people will have a look and say, gee, it looks pretty messy to me. Whereas traditional risk management that's not visual, verbal, or semiotic looks very ordered, and look, it's like an auditing checklist. I mean, incredibly ordered, and auditors come in and it's all very ordered. But no audit can show you the relationship or the semiotic visual connection between many things simply because their tool doesn't allow it. An audited 10-page audit simply has no capability within it to show the connection between what you just said was a non-compliance and then link it to, say, a psychological or cultural factor in an organization and then show a connection. There's just no visual, verbal way of showing that in a traditional audit.
And I think you find that the other schools of thought are based around knowledge only and the regurgitation of that knowledge. Here we have a visual and verbal and semiotic tool that'll mean different things to different people, but with a central tenet.
Yeah, well, I'm glad you raised the sense of knowledge, because the dominant form of knowledge in traditional risk and safety is rationalism and cognitivism. And there's nothing wrong with those, but those exclusively within themselves are very much like traditional schooling, you know, data in, data out, learn your facts, get your data, and then regurgitate them out. This is not like that. This is far more intuitive. And by being verbal and visual and semiotic, it doesn't have the same sense of control. You can't control the risk IQ process like you can control an audit. It's just, you can't even compare the two.
Yeah, the outcomes are never predestined. It will take you places that you never thought.
Well, and the other thing, Matt, is when you have an auditor, the focus is very much on the piece of paper that the auditor holds and the power of the auditor to interpret that piece of paper and what that designed checklist tells them.
Yeah.
So when that happens, yeah. But this is completely different.
So
this shifts from the audit to a joint focused relational mapping process, which both people see and share. When the auditor comes in a normal organizational sense, the only person who really sees the checklist is the auditor, and it's certainly not shared. But if I do a IQ mapping process with you or with anyone, they see it and participate in it. Audits are very much not about participation.
It's all, what did you do? What did you do? What did you do? No, why did you do it?
Yep.
What did the company think of it?
Yeah, but you got to think about people watching this video, Matt. They don't even know what the three icons mean.
Yeah.
You just pointed to them and no one knows what it means. They're on the screen, in the shared screen here. We've got a little red character, green character, and a yellow, orange character, and three icons down below. And people don't even know what that means. But iconic learning is part of this visual verbal process. But what I'm just making the point is, in an auditing sense, the auditor controls the process. This, in fact, is very different. The participant participates in the process, in the method. They not only see it, they reflect upon it, and they have their contribution to it. Whereas an auditor comes in with a checklist and says, here's a non-compliance, fix it.
Yeah.
You don't participate in it.
No, it's done to you. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So we created these 20 years ago, this idea of understanding workspace, headspace, group space, and that's what these three icons mean. So anything that's physical, practical, like problem solving, anything that you considered like a puzzle or a problem or something you have to fix in physical space is represented by a red icon of a multi-sided Rubik's Cube, but it's about everything physical. Workspace. Headspace is about psychology. It's about what happens in people's heads. It's about brain work. And group space is about what happens between people. So we develop these three concepts: workspace, headspace, group space, and it's based upon a foundation in those where there is a visual, verbal, semiotic relationship between those three. So if we look at the board behind me and the board behind you, we see the three icons, and the moment we map, we start using arrows and lines to join connections between what's happening physically, what's happening psychologically, and what's happening culturally. But of course, no one is familiar or comfortable with those three words. So we simply use workspace, headspace, group space. And it is a very, very powerful way of understanding a workplace in physical things, headspace things, and group space things. Now, it's also anchored to what you can see there, which is called 1B3M, which is one brain, three minds. And so when we talk about headspace, or we talk about the human mind, we don't just mean the brain, we mean the whole person, and that would take another presentation. We maybe have to do that in another presentation. But you can already see it's triarchic. There's a relationship between what happens physically and what happens represented by the three characters, physically, psychologically, culturally, and it supports both a very basic sense of conversational engagement, but you can take it to the highest critical relational level you want. And it's only an introduction in this one. There are many other IQ tools that support it, and we might do a series of them over time, showing what some of those other tools are. And they're tools that use these three simple icons: workspace, headspace, group space, and we broaden it across a whole range of different aspects of risk. And then we're not going to go into advanced IQ coding or anything like that. That'll have to be another workshop.
So just summing up is that risk IQ, this is foundational stuff that we're doing.
Yep.
The adept in it, you do need these foundations.
Yeah, well, you and I know that probably to become skilled in risk IQ would take maybe a 2-day course to get started, really, and then to get to what you call would be an advanced level would probably take another 2 days. So the model of it just looks like that. It's just a matrix in a quadrant, like many quadrants in psychology and sociology and many other disciplines. There are lots of ways of using a quadrant in how to think. And so we see workspace positive and negatives. We see headspace focusing on questions and group space focusing on questions, with the one brain, three minds icon in the middle. And in many ways, it's the opposite again. Go to an audit. It's blank, it's open. The use of this is as good as you can ask open questions. It's as good as you are at listening. If you're good at open questions, you're good at listening, this is a perfect model for you. If you just want to come in with an audit checklist and tell someone that this is a non-compliance, then fine, use an audit checklist. But this is free and open, but it is highly dependent on your ability to listen and highly dependent on your ability to ask open questions.
So it's really interesting. We've down the bottom left, we've got another tool for critical listening.
Yes, that's right. I've left it there. We maybe have to do that in another conversation, but it's just an iconic representation that people often speak to you in this kind of problems to solve stuff, you know, this workspace stuff. And often on a workspace, if you're in middle management or upper management and someone comes to you, it's often about problem solving. The character who on the right-hand side not only hears the problem that you're speaking about, but also can hear the psychological headspace, the cultural group space with which that question comes, or with that inquiry comes. So that's what that little icon means. It puts the three icons in the matrix in a conversational structure, but we may have to go to that in another chat.
So it's easily adaptable to a whiteboard.
Oh yeah, piece of paper. We've even got little, we've even got little pocket these little things, little pocket versions of this. So you can do it on the run, you can do it on the fly, you can do it on a scrap of paper, or when you get intuitive, you just do it in your head. You don't. I mean, Brian Darlington, who's been doing it in South Africa recently, he's got a little whiteboard the size of an A3 sheet of paper, and he just gets with a group of people in the middle of nowhere on the back of a Jeep and does this. And he does it with people who've never seen it done before, and they get it pretty quickly. They see it's visual and it's verbal, and lots of workers who don't have particularly high levels of either literacy or numeracy particularly find this visual verbal kind of mapping thing much easier to understand than traditional cognitive rationalist kind of safety stuff that's based around a kind of audit method.
Yeah. Okay, let's go into a little bit of the working. So,
okay.
I think we can point out too that this is actually acceptable in court as well.
Oh, yeah, that's a very good point. It is interesting that when people think about risk management, that they only think of one method, which is really odd because there is no prescribed method. This is just as valid. A visual verbal method is just as valid as a written method. Indeed, what's interesting is whenever you go into the court, into a coronial inquiry, often it's the traditional auditing method that is interrogated by a visual verbal method. And that's as simple as a lawyer coming to you and saying, well, I've seen your checklist, but what did you do and say that day? What did you see? What did you do? What was said? And often the lawyer or the interrogator in a courtroom is using a visual verbal method to try to find out what happened on the day. And so the IQ method within itself actually lends itself better to that kind of cross-examination, or it lends itself better to the idea of testimony, which is what courtrooms work on, than, in fact, this removed idea that an engineer can run through an audit and you actually don't even say anything. An audit can be done in complete silence in a factory and you can walk away.
Yeah. And
yes, it is a good point you've raised that within a legal framework, this method is just as valid as any other method. I would say more so.
Yeah, look, one of those things that, I mean, 2 years to ask somebody to go to court, then another 2 years to actually appear there. And one of the questions generally asked, what was the mood on the ground that day?
Oh, well, that's more than that. Not 2 and 2. It's more like 4 and 4. But yeah, they don't often ask questions like that in a courtroom, but they do want recall. They do want phenomenal recall, and it's been 4 years since the event. And this particular tool helps that a great deal. It works on a very, very different sense of memory and a very, very different sense of embodied recollection than other methods. But look, we need to probably go into another session. But there's no doubt about it. If you are asked to go to court to testify and give your testimony in court about a serious incident, you'll be in the dock for at least 2 days or 3 days under cross-examination. Not 2 hours, it'll be days. And the kind of stuff that you'll be expected to recall will be a lot more demanding than just what was the mood like that day. But yeah, let's progress on, Matt. We can maybe go into that. But if people are interested in the legal framework of lots of stuff, they can read the book Risky Conversations, or they can look at the complete video series we did with Greg Smith. But the IQ method itself is particularly helpful with recall, particularly help with memory recall.
Yeah.
Okay, so
and this is big. The first one, you don't solve or fix anything. Hang on. Why are we doing this?
Yeah, I know. Look, if you go into any situation and your agenda is to fix and solve things, you won't be listening. Whether you like it or not, your agenda will be blocking your ability to listen. And the design of your audit or the design of your method will inhibit listening and learning. And so this is a standard rule in any kind of counseling process as well. If someone comes to you and says, Matt, can you give me help? If your first response is, oh, Rob, here's the solution, I can fix this, here's what you do, you're already proving to me you haven't listened. And so the best way to do that is to suspend your agenda. And suspending agenda means not get rid of your agenda. It simply means your agenda cannot guide a risk evaluation process. I can't hear what your problem is, and I can't listen to what your agenda is if it's blocked by my agenda or preconceived notions and assumptions about what I'm about to hear. So that opening one is, you need to go in with an attitude that doesn't try to solve and fix anything or anyone.
Yeah, so 2 points. One, if I say root cause analysis,
oh my God, yep.
Just narrowed down everything, how we're going to do it. So I've limited the path of questioning that I can, closed question, not open, and I want an outcome.
Yep. And look, the second point's very, very challenging for people in risk and safety. There doesn't have to be an outcome or a purpose. Now, there may be, but in when you have an agenda that there has to be an outcome and there has to be a purpose, again, you begin shaping the risk assessment. You begin shaping the design to get to your outcome. And that will, again, restrict your ability to listen and will restrict your ability to hear what the other person is saying. And if you go to the courtroom process again, let me tell you, there are plenty of court cases where there is no outcome. There is no outcome. There is insufficient evidence to get a prosecution. And so the courts accept, particularly in risk and safety, the courts accept that there may not be an outcome. But the key role of the court is to listen, to hear the evidence before a judgment is made. And unfortunately, if you take an auditing approach or an engineering approach to a conversation with someone, you already know the solution and you already know what to fix and you already haven't listened. And so this is a particularly helpful method, the IQ method, but it's based upon the ability to not do those things. Stop controlling the other person, stop taking your agenda in, or you're simply not going to engage and you're not going to listen. And we have a tool. You can see the tool there. It's a pocket card. It sits in your pocket, and it's a reminder of how to do IQ listening. And we even give you the best questions to use, because most people actually don't even know how to ask open questions. So the questions are listed there, which we call the best questions. They're listed there. Step me through. Can you walk me through? Can you tell me about? Can you tell me more? You know, it's not rocket science. The key to this method is listen to the other person, because in the context, they are probably the greatest expert about the nature of the risk they are following. It's not my risk. It's not my workplace. Even if it is my workplace and I'm a manager, it's not my work. So the best way to facilitate listening and understanding, suspend your agenda, don't try to control the other person, and let them tell their story. Let them speak. And so these tools help quite a bit. I think we jump on to the next one, and just say quickly that the process of collecting and mapping is what we will do in another video.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to cover this at all, except to say, again, the mapping process is a visual way of collecting the visual, verbal, semiotic things that happen and simply presenting them visually to someone and allowing them to participate in it.
I just want to go to the last 2 points quickly because, really good. Adaptable and suited for tackling wicked problems.
Yes.
So, can you speak to, like, a wicked problem? We can't solve it, but we can tackle it.
Yeah. Well, I was interesting. I was reading a couple of cultural texts yesterday on, so-called experts in safety culture, and I was reading about it. And the biggest problem for people in risk and safety, and they do it all the time when they start their book, and say, "Oh, this is confusing." Huh?
Yeah.
So they want order and they want to tidy it up. The trouble is, things like culture and risk are wicked problems. They're not solvable. They're not controllable. In fact, you actually make them worse the more you try to control them. And so a wicked problem is an intractable problem. It's not just complex. It's not a complex problem. It is beyond complex. And so, fixing a tire is a simple problem. You got a flat tire. Fixing that tire is a simple problem. If I want to go to a complex problem, then I can't fix it myself. I've actually got to go to a mechanic who has the skills, and he's got a team, and that team, his or her team, are then going to work on the problem. That's a complex problem. When you go to a wicked problem, we look at the car industry, and we're trying to solve the problem of electric vehicles and batteries and transport and, etc. So that's where the wicked problem is. It is intractable. It's not controllable. It is beyond your imagination. It's messy and it's confusing. So this IQ, risk IQ mapping, in fact, is a wonderful tool for connecting with wicked problems because, again, if you think risk is a simple, controllable problem, like fill the checklist out and the risk is now managed, then you haven't been watching real life lately, and you certainly have been following the way accidents happen in the workplace. I haven't been to one incident or accident anywhere in the last 20 years where a checklist has not been done. I haven't been to one. The checklist is done, and still someone got killed.
Well, look and talk Costa Concordia.
Well, yeah, that's Nippon tells the story about that. But anyway, so yes, it's adaptable and suited for tackling wicked problems, and risk is a wicked problem. It's not simple. Anything that involves organizations, fallible people, a context and complexity is already a wicked problem.
And the
Cost
larger,
is one, risk is one.
the larger the wickedity.
Yeah, well, we're talking language now which most people have not been trained in. So, look, that would be another blog on another chat on wicked problems. And then it helps create collective coherence. So again, one of the important parts in this board, and perhaps we should finish on this, one of the important parts on this board is it's shared.
Yeah.
It's engagement and it's shared. Again, let's go back to the auditing checklist program process. That necessarily does not help share relationships between. The method itself doesn't encourage sharing. This method is actually the opposite. You can't do it unless it's shared. And so in that sharing, a sense of collective coherence is created. We're not solving the problem, but you've got much greater coherence after the process.
Yeah, it's interesting. A dot point saying Bob thought something in a report will be ignored, but using the visual verbal system, it is actually counted in as a motivation. So, and it's visible.
And a perception, and it's visual, and you put Bob thought this over here, and it's connected to toolbox talk didn't work here, and it's connected to induction didn't work here, and it's connected to he wasn't listening during the toolbox or the checklist. I mean, there's all these connections made from what Bob thought. But yeah, we'll do that in another presentation. What does a board look like? Well, there's a IQ engagement board process. The simple, a 30-minute discussion that was, and that was mapped someone who has been trained in IQ listening and risk IQ did that particular board with me. That's a hugely detailed coding, and it looks phenomenally messy. But to anyone trained in risk IQ, that makes sense.
Yeah.
And it's the representation of a 30-minute conversation, and it gets to the most amazingly important cultural and psychological information, which shapes the listener and the participants' way forward. It provides not solutions, but it provides guidance, because again, the person who's facilitating the conversation should not be controlling the conversation. The key is the person who actually has to wear the risk and own the risk. They simply need help to come to that place of tackling it. I'm going to jump in my ute and drive home and drive away. And that's what the auditor does. You still haven't fixed anything. You still haven't helped anyone with anything. You've jumped in your ute and you told them here's the problem and here's your non-compliance or non-conformance. This is very different. The participant is helped by this process so they can go back and own the risk and tackle it with greater maturity themselves. Look, we've been going a while, Matt. So, and I've been talking quite a bit, but look, it's an introductory approach to the risk IQ. Did you want to finish up with something, and we'll close this off, and we might do, part 2, part 3.
Yeah, we'll close off. That was great. I think people have now got an idea of the overview of it and the ability for it to produce more detailed analysis of whatever you're using the board for. And that's it. It has multiple uses.
Oh, yeah.
I use it in incident investigations. I use it in conversations. I use it, we're going to talk about it in SWOT analyses.
Yep.
Yeah. And we're plotting this, if you saw that last screen, OmniGraffle. So you can look that up.
Well, that's again, that you're right. That map that I did was done by a piece of software. It's simply a computer program that helps visualize. Again, it's a visual verbal semiotic tool, and semiotics is absolutely foundational to the social psychology of risk. I would say that again, there is nothing on the risk and safety market which is visual verbal semiotic way of tackling risk.
Yeah,
it doesn't exist unless you do it here. Happy to share it. I mean, if there are people watching this video and they want to learn the method, it is teachable. They can email you, your email address is there. They can email me, my email address is there. You can actually learn it online. It would take a bit, but the best way to learn it is face-to-face. But it's documented in the book. It works with Brian Darlington about how it actually works and changes the way organizations tackle risk and safety in the workplace. It's actually documented. But if you do want to learn how to do it, and you are interested in visual, verbal, semiotic learning, then just send an email and we'll get back to you. And you can either do it through Zoom or